Hello, and welcome back to our English Today journey. I am really happy that you are here with me today. This lesson is not just about learning English. It is about something much deeper. It is about life, growth, and the way we see ourselves. Learning a language is not only about memorizing new words or grammar rules. It is also about changing habits. It means letting go of old ways of speaking and learning new ones. It is about moving from fear to confidence, from silence to speaking clearly, and from doubt to belief. And when you think about it, this is exactly how life works too. That is why today's topic is important for both your English journey and your personal journey. Today's message is simple but powerful. Stop fixing yourself. Start replacing yourself. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you said to yourself, I really need to fix something about me? Maybe it was a small habit, like always procrastinating or wasting time. Or maybe it was something bigger, like being afraid to speak in meetings, feeling shy around people, or doubting yourself even when you are capable. We live in a world that constantly tells us that we are not good enough. Everywhere we look, books, podcasts, social media, videos, and even advertisements, we hear the same message again and again. Something is wrong with you. You need to improve. You need to change. You must fix yourself if you want to be happy. After hearing this message for so long, we start to believe it. We begin to think that if we fix our weaknesses, repair our flaws, and polish our rough edges, then finally we will feel complete. Finally, we will feel enough. But here's the big question. What if you do not need fixing at all? What if real change does not come from fixing the old version of you, but from replacing it? Replacing old beliefs that limit you. Replacing habits that hold you back. Replacing negative stories you tell yourself every day. Some parts of us are not broken, they are just outdated. Let's look at a simple example. Imagine your phone is very old and slow. It freezes, crashes, and does not work well anymore. Would you spend months trying to fix every small problem? Probably not. At some point, you would decide to upgrade. You would replace it with a newer phone that works better and supports your life today. In the same way, sometimes we don't need to fix who we are. We need to replace old versions of ourselves with new ones that match who we are becoming. But when it comes to ourselves, we do not act the same way. Instead of replacing what no longer works, we keep trying to fix it. We repair, adjust, and criticize ourselves again and again. We believe that if we just try harder, push more, or judge ourselves more strictly, then one day we will finally be enough. But instead of moving forward, we stay trapped in the same cycle. We try to fix ourselves, we fail, and then we feel disappointed and frustrated. This loop repeats over and over. Fixing keeps you stuck in the past. Replacing helps you grow. When you replace something, you stop focusing on what is broken and start creating something new. You are no longer trying to repair an old system that does not work anymore. Instead, you are building a better one. Think of it like updating your personal operating system. You delete the old code that slows you down and install a new system that helps you live, speak, and think in a healthier way. Now, let's look at the bigger picture. The world we live in today. Modern culture makes it almost impossible to escape the idea that we need fixing. The self-help industry, which is worth billions of dollars, is built on this belief. Everywhere you look, someone is telling you how to improve yourself. There are countless books about being more productive. There are YouTube channels that promise the perfect morning routine. There are motivational quotes that appear on your phone every single day. On the surface, all of this looks positive. The message sounds encouraging. Be better. Improve yourself. Work harder. Grow faster. But hidden underneath these messages is a quiet voice that whispers something else. You are not enough the way you are. It tells you that something inside you is broken and must be fixed. Over time, this message becomes part of your thinking. You begin to speak to yourself using what we can call fixing language. You start saying things like, if I could just be more disciplined. If I could just stop procrastinating. If I could just lose a few kilos. If I could just speak more confidently. That small phrase, "if I could just," sounds harmless, but it is very powerful. It quietly teaches you that you are incomplete. It tells you that you must fix something before you are allowed to feel good about yourself. Because of this belief, you start chasing quick solutions. You try crash diets that promise amazing results in 2 weeks. You take personality tests that claim to explain who you are in 5 minutes. You follow productivity hacks that tell you to wake up at 5 a.m., drink special coffee, meditate perfectly, and suddenly become a new person. But these quick fixes rarely last. They do not replace who you are. They only try to fix the surface, while the deeper patterns stay the same. Exactly 23 minutes before starting your day. All these rules sound very specific and serious, but deep down, they do not truly change who you are. That is because you cannot fix your way to freedom. You can only replace your way there. Real change does not come from trying harder to repair the old version of yourself. It comes from choosing a new one. So, let's talk about this shift, from fixing to replacing. What does it really mean to replace yourself? It means choosing a new story about who you are. It means deciding to stop identifying with old patterns that keep you small and afraid. It means understanding that you are not your past habits. You are not your old mistakes. For example, if your old belief says, "I'm not confident enough," your new belief does not need to be extreme. It can simply say, "I am learning to express myself more freely." If your old pattern says, "I always procrastinate," your new pattern might say, "I am practicing consistency in small, simple ways." This is what replacing looks like. It is gentle, realistic, and honest. Replacing does not mean pretending your weaknesses do not exist. It does not mean ignoring them or feeling fake. It means outgrowing them. Instead of patching the old version of yourself again and again, you start building a new version that fits who you are becoming. That is what real transformation is. It is not about fixing flaws. It is about replacing limits. It is not about fighting who you are. It is about evolving into who you are meant to be. As we move through this idea together, I want this to feel like a quiet conversation with yourself. Take a moment to pause. Ask yourself some honest questions. What old patterns am I still trying to fix? What beliefs do I keep repairing instead of replacing? What would happen if I stopped fixing and started replacing instead? What version of myself do I want to install next? Because this journey is not only about listening to words. It is about awareness. It is about becoming more fluent, not just in English, but in living your life with clarity and kindness toward yourself. Learning a language is also learning how to speak to yourself in a better way. So take a breath. Let go of the pressure to be perfect. You do not need to become someone else overnight. And remember this truth. You do not need fixing. You need replacing. You are not broken. You are simply updating. Stop fixing yourself. Start replacing yourself. Now, let's talk about the limitations of fixing. Some self-fixing ideas can help for a short time. You try a new habit, follow a new plan, or read a new book, and for a few days, you feel excited and motivated. But soon, that feeling fades. Life gets busy again. You feel tired, frustrated, and once more you feel like something deep inside you is still not right. And let's be honest, this cycle can be exhausting. Let's be honest for a moment. This culture of constantly fixing ourselves is very profitable. Entire industries exist because they convince us that we are never enough. The beauty industry sells creams and treatments to fix your skin. The diet industry sells plans and programs to fix your body. The self-improvement world sells courses, apps, and books to fix your mind. This is a trillion-dollar cycle, and it never really stops. At the center of this cycle is a simple trick. If you keep believing that something is wrong with you, you will always come back for more. The more you buy, the more you try. The more you consume, the more you chase an idea called perfection. But notice what does not happen. You do not feel free. You do not feel at peace. You do not feel complete. This is not really about the tools themselves. And let me be clear. I am not saying that productivity tools, healthy diets, or self-reflection exercises are bad. Many of them can be helpful and even life-changing when used in a healthy way. The real problem is not the tool. The problem is the belief system behind it. The quiet voice in your mind that says, "You are still not good enough." That belief is dangerous. It pulls your attention away from growth and places it on repair. It teaches you to look at your life not as a space full of possibilities, but as a list of problems that need fixing. When you are always repairing yourself, you slowly begin to believe that you are deeply flawed. And here is the painful irony. The more you try to fix yourself, the more broken you start to feel. Now, let's make this personal. Bring this idea closer to your own life. When was the last time you felt that you needed to fix something about yourself just to be accepted? Maybe it was before an important presentation at work and you thought, "I need to sound smarter or they won't respect me." Maybe it was before meeting new people and you told yourself, "I have to act more confident or they won't like me." Or maybe it happened during your English learning journey. Maybe you thought, "If I don't fix my accent, no one will take me seriously." These thoughts may sound normal, but notice what they really do. They do not simply encourage growth. They quietly push you toward shame. They tell you that who you are right now is not acceptable. They tell you that you must repair yourself before you are allowed to belong, to speak, or to be seen. Over time, this way of thinking becomes heavy. It makes learning harder. It makes growth feel painful instead of exciting. Growth should feel like expansion, not punishment. Learning English, improving your skills, or becoming more confident should not come from fear or self-criticism. When improvement is driven by shame, it drains your energy. But when growth comes from replacement, from choosing new beliefs and new stories, it feels lighter and more natural. You are not here to fix a broken version of yourself. You are here to grow into a new one. Those thoughts slowly tell you that who you are right now is not enough. And that feeling, this deep belief that you are lacking something, is what keeps so many people trapped. This way of thinking has a name. Psychologists call it a deficit mindset. A deficit mindset focuses on what is missing instead of what is possible. When you think this way, you stop seeing yourself as a person full of potential. Instead, you start seeing yourself as a list of problems that need to be solved. You stop recognizing your strengths and begin to obsess over your weaknesses. Little by little, your attention moves away from growth and towards self-judgment. Once this mindset takes hold, everything seems to confirm your worst fears. You fail one test and your mind immediately says, "See, I knew I wasn't smart enough." You miss one workout and you tell yourself, "I knew I was lazy." You make one small mistake, and suddenly it feels like proof that something is deeply wrong with you. Every setback becomes evidence. Every challenge becomes a judgment. This is how the culture of fixing works. It locks you into a cycle of self-doubt and self-criticism. Instead of helping you grow, it feeds the very problem it claims to solve. The more you try to fix yourself, the more broken you feel. The more broken you feel, the harder you try to fix yourself. And the cycle continues. But here is the truth, and this is why we are having this conversation. You are not a machine that needs constant repair. You are a human being. You have the ability to learn, adapt, grow, and reinvent yourself. Real growth does not come from endless fixing. It comes from replacing. Replacing beliefs that keep you small with beliefs that help you rise. Replacing habits that drain your energy with habits that support you. Replacing the harsh inner critic that tears you down with an inner coach that encourages you and guides you forward. When you replace, you are not denying your struggles. You are choosing a better direction. Replacing is an upgrade. It means you stop patching the old version of yourself and start building something new. You stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" and start asking, "What do I want to grow into?" That single shift changes everything. It turns learning into exploration. It turns mistakes into feedback. It turns fear into curiosity. Before we go deeper into this journey, I want to leave you with a gentle moment of reflection. Take a pause and look at your life as it is right now. Can you see the areas where you have been trying to fix yourself just to feel accepted or worthy? Can you notice the places where shame has been pushing your growth instead of curiosity? And if you can see those patterns, here is the real question. Are you willing to imagine what your life might look like if you stopped endlessly fixing yourself and started replacing those patterns instead? What if growth felt lighter? What if learning felt kinder? What if becoming better did not mean becoming smaller first? You do not need to repair your worth. You need to recognize your ability to evolve. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are in progress. And progress does not come from fixing who you are, but from replacing what no longer serves who you are becoming. Take a moment to think about this, because this is where real transformation truly begins. You do not need to fix who you are. You need to replace what no longer fits your life. That small shift in thinking can change everything. At first, the idea of fixing ourselves sounds reasonable, doesn't it? Something feels wrong, so we try to repair it. This logic feels simple and familiar. From a young age, we are trained to think this way. If your car breaks down, you take it to a mechanic. If your computer crashes, you restart it or call IT support. If your phone freezes, you reset it and expect it to work again. So when something feels wrong inside us, when we feel unmotivated, insecure, anxious, or unhappy, we naturally apply the same logic. We search for the broken part. We try to fix it. We hope that once it is repaired, we will feel normal again. On the surface, this sounds practical and smart. But here is where the problem begins. Human beings are not machines. We do not have simple parts that can be repaired or replaced so easily. We are emotional, layered, complex, and constantly changing. What worked for us 5 years ago may not work now. Who we were in the past is not who we are becoming. That is why the fixing mindset, even though it feels comforting in theory, often fails in real life. Fixing usually works only on the surface. It treats the symptom, not the root cause. Imagine you have an old roof that starts to leak. You climb up, find a small hole, and patch it with tar. You feel relieved. For a few days, maybe even a few weeks, the leak is gone. But then another crack appears. Soon after, another one shows up. Before long, you are back on the roof again, patching and repairing over and over. The deeper problem was never solved. The wood underneath is still weak. The foundation is still damaged. You were fixing what you could see, but not what was really causing the problem. This is exactly what happens when we live with a fixing mindset in our lives. We patch our procrastination with productivity apps. We cover low self-esteem with motivational quotes. We try to silence anxiety with constant distractions, scrolling on our phones, watching videos, or staying busy all the time. For a moment, it feels better. But the feeling does not last. Soon, the same problems return. The stress comes back. The doubt returns. And we start fixing again, thinking we just have not tried hard enough yet. But the truth is, we are not dealing with the real issue. We are only covering it. Replacing is different. Replacing means looking deeper. It means asking not, what is wrong with me, but what no longer fits the person I am becoming. It means understanding that some habits, beliefs, and identities are simply outdated. They are not broken. They just belong to an older version of you. When you replace instead of fix, you stop endlessly repairing the surface. You begin building something new from the inside. And that is when real, lasting change finally begins. You keep patching, fixing, and staying busy, but the real problem does not disappear. It only hides for a short time. This is why fixing often creates the illusion of progress. It makes you feel like you are moving forward, even when nothing deep has truly changed. Fixing can trick you into believing you are improving, but most of the time it only gives temporary relief. It is like painting over a cracked wall. For a moment, the wall looks clean and new, but underneath, the cracks are still spreading. Nothing real has been repaired. This is why so many people experience self-help burnout. They jump from one solution to another. 1 week it is a new morning routine. The next week it is a new diet. Then it is a new productivity system or a new mindset technique. Each time there is hope. Maybe this one will finally fix everything. But after all the effort, people still ask the same painful question. Why am I still struggling with the same problems? The answer is simple, even if it is not easy to accept. Fixing only treats the symptoms. It never reaches the root. And because the root stays the same, the problems keep coming back. There is another hidden danger in the fixing mindset. It traps you inside the very identity you want to escape. Think about this carefully. When you say, I need to fix my laziness, you are already calling yourself a lazy person. You have accepted that label as part of who you are. Fixing then becomes an attempt to make that identity a little more acceptable, a little less painful. But what if laziness is not who you are at all? What if it is just an old habit or a pattern that once protected you but no longer helps you? When you stay in a fixing mindset, you never give yourself permission to leave that identity behind. You remain the person who is broken, always repairing, always struggling, always trying to improve what you believe is flawed. When you shift from fixing to replacing, everything changes. You stop saying, I am a lazy person trying to fix my laziness. Instead, you begin to say, I am becoming a consistent person who values small progress. That change may sound simple, but it is powerful. One story keeps you trapped in the past. The other allows you to move forward. One keeps you tied to what you think is wrong with you. The other helps you grow into something new. This brings us to another important difference: short-term relief versus long-term change. The fixing mindset almost always focuses on short-term results. It wants quick comfort, fast improvement, and immediate relief from discomfort. It asks, how can I feel better right now? Replacing asks a different question. It asks, who do I want to become? And that question leads to deeper, longer-lasting change. Replacing may feel slower at first, but it builds something real, something stable, something that does not fall apart after the motivation fades. Fixing keeps you busy. Replacing helps you evolve. And real change does not come from repairing the old version of yourself again and again. It comes from letting go of who you were and stepping into who you are becoming. You're not here to fix a broken identity. You are here to replace an outdated one. Fixing is usually about short-term relief, not long-term transformation. It focuses on making the pain disappear right now. Replacing, on the other hand, is about creating a strong foundation for lasting growth. Fixing asks, how do I stop feeling bad? Replacing asks a much deeper question. What kind of person do I want to become? Fixing patches the leak. Replacing rebuilds the roof. Fixing brings comfort for a moment. Replacing brings freedom for a lifetime. This shift from surface-level repair to deep transformation is where real growth begins. When you stop asking how to escape discomfort and start asking how to grow beyond it, everything changes. Fixing says, how do I stop feeling bad right now? Replacing says, how do I become the kind of person who no longer carries this problem in the first place? Fixing may help you survive today's discomfort. Replacing helps you build tomorrow's strength. Fixing is like putting out small fires again and again. Replacing is like designing a system where fires do not start so easily in the first place. Now, let's be honest. There are moments in life when fixing is necessary. If your week is chaotic, you might need a quick system or simple hack just to get through it. If you are facing a sudden crisis, a temporary solution might be exactly what keeps you standing. There is nothing wrong with that. Fixes have their place. They help us survive hard moments. The danger begins when short-term fixes become your entire way of living. When your whole life turns into one emergency repair after another. When you are always reacting, always fixing, always rushing to solve the next problem. You become a firefighter in your own life, running from one blaze to the next, never stopping long enough to redesign how you live so the fires stop starting. This constant repairing comes with a heavy cost. Fixing is exhausting. Every time you tell yourself, "I need to fix this," you quietly place another weight on your shoulders. You strengthen the belief that you are always behind, that you are always failing, that you are always chasing a better version of yourself that never quite arrives. Over time, this wears you down. Growth starts to feel like pressure instead of possibility. Improvement feels like punishment instead of progress. You are not moving forward, you are just trying to keep up. Replacing feels different. Replacing does not rush you. It does not shame you. It asks you to step back and look at the bigger picture. Instead of constantly asking, "What's wrong with me?" you begin to ask, "What kind of life do I want to build?" Replacing shifts your energy from repair to design, from survival to creation, from guilt to intention. You stop carrying the weight of constant fixing and start building systems, habits, and beliefs that actually support who you are becoming. You were never meant to live your life in permanent repair mode. You were meant to grow, evolve, and move forward with clarity. Fixing keeps you stuck in reaction. Replacing gives you direction. And that is where true, lasting transformation begins. When you spend your life trying to fix yourself, it can feel like chasing a version of yourself that is always just out of reach. You think, "If only I fix this, I'll finally feel complete." Over time, that pressure does not make you stronger. Instead, it wears you down. It drains your energy, saps your joy, and quietly steals your confidence. Life starts to feel like nothing more than a long list of flaws that need correcting. No wonder so many people feel stuck, even while working hard to improve themselves every day. So here is the turning question I want to ask you directly. In your own life, are you still patching holes in the roof, hoping the rain will finally stay out? Are you painting over cracks, convincing yourself that the wall looks new? Or are you ready to ask a deeper, harder question? What if I stopped fixing the old structure and started building a new one? That question may sound simple, but it is powerful. It is the gateway to real transformation. Because at the end of the day, fixing only keeps you living as a slightly improved version of your old self. Replacing, on the other hand, allows you to step into a completely new version of yourself. Now, what does it really mean to replace yourself? At first, the word replace might feel harsh, as if you were throwing something away. But I want you to understand it differently. Replacing is not about rejection. It is not about erasing who you are. It is not about pretending your past does not matter. It is not about thinking that the old version of you was worthless. Replacing is much wiser and gentler than that. It is about making a conscious choice to exchange habits, beliefs, and patterns that no longer help you for new ones that support your growth. It is not about deleting your past. It is about evolving from it. Think of it like updating the operating system on your computer. You do not throw away all your files, memories, or experiences. They stay with you. But the system that runs them, the way your mind and habits work, becomes faster, more efficient, and more supportive. It aligns better with the person you want to become. That is what replacing is. Upgrading yourself without losing who you are. Let's make this idea easier to understand with a simple example. Imagine you have a habit of procrastinating. For years, it has held you back from doing important work. Fixing this might mean trying harder, setting alarms, or forcing yourself to work. You might succeed for a short time, but the habit always finds a way back. Replacing it, however, means looking at why you procrastinate and creating a new pattern in its place. It might mean building a small daily routine that you can follow consistently, changing how you approach tasks, and practicing small actions that build your focus over time. You are not denying your old habit existed. You are creating a new habit that serves you better. Replacing is not about shame. It is not about punishment. It is about choice, growth, and evolution. It is about stepping into a version of yourself that works for the life you want to live, instead of endlessly repairing the old one. Imagine living for years with a voice in your head that constantly criticizes you. Every time you make a mistake, it speaks up. You forget to send an important email at work, and immediately that voice says, "You're so irresponsible. How could you mess up again?" You begin to believe it. Over time, that inner critic starts running your life, quietly shaping how you feel, think, and act. Now here's the key. You don't need to fix that voice. You need to replace it. Fixing it might mean trying to ignore it or push it away, but it will always come back. Replacing it means creating a new, supportive inner voice, one that says, "I made a small mistake, and that's okay. I'll do better next time." That is not denial. That is growth. Every time you swap criticism for compassion, you are installing a stronger, healthier version of yourself. You are teaching your mind to work for you, not against you. Let's make this more concrete. Imagine you're learning English and make a small grammar mistake. That old voice inside you immediately says, "See? You'll never be fluent." That critical voice is an old pattern, a habit of self-criticism that has learned to speak louder than your confidence. If you tried fixing it, you might tell yourself to stop thinking that way, distract yourself, or scroll through something to forget it. But that only works temporarily. The voice will return. Replacing takes a completely different approach. Replacing means gently teaching yourself a new voice, one built on self-compassion. Instead of saying, "I'm so irresponsible," the new voice says, "I made a mistake, but I can correct it." Instead of, "I'll never be fluent," it says, "I made a mistake, and I'm improving every day." Notice what happens here. The old pattern isn't just patched or ignored. It is transformed into something healthier, kinder, and far more powerful. That is what creates true resilience. That is how you stop being trapped by doubt and fear. Another example many of us know too well is procrastination. You delay tasks until the last minute. Then guilt sets in. You rush. You stress. You promise yourself it won't happen again. And yet, next week, the same cycle starts over. Fixing this usually means trying harder, using a new productivity app, or setting stricter rules. You may get temporary results, but the habit always finds a way back. Replacing, however, works differently. It asks you to examine why you procrastinate and gently install a new pattern in its place. Maybe you break tasks into tiny steps, create a small daily routine, or practice consistency in a way that feels achievable. You are not trying to punish yourself into action. You are creating a new system that supports the person you want to become. This is the heart of replacing. It is not about ignoring your mistakes or pretending problems don't exist. It is about transforming old patterns into habits and thoughts that build strength, confidence, and freedom. It is how you move from surviving your challenges to actually growing through them. That's the procrastination cycle. You delay tasks, feel guilty, rush to finish at the last minute, and then promise yourself it won't happen again. But next week, it starts all over. Trying to fix it often looks like quick solutions. You might buy a new planner, download another productivity app, or stay up late for a few nights just to catch up. For a while, it feels like progress. You think, this time it will work. But soon, the old pattern returns, and you feel stuck again. Replacing, however, is different. It goes deeper. It addresses the habit that drives procrastination at its roots. Instead of trying to force yourself to work harder or longer, replacing asks, what small changes can I make to create consistent action? Maybe it means working in short, focused blocks of time. Maybe it means celebrating small wins instead of waiting for perfection. Slowly, over time, your identity begins to shift. You move from being someone who procrastinates to someone who takes steady action every day. That is replacement. It is deeper, it lasts longer, and it changes how you see yourself. Here's a metaphor that can help you understand this idea. Think of a tree. Every autumn, it lets go of its old leaves. In spring, new leaves grow. The tree does not reject its roots, its trunk, or its history. It simply replaces what has outlived its usefulness. You're the same. You don't need to erase your story or pretend the past didn't happen. You only need to replace the parts that keep you stuck in the same chapter, the habits, thoughts, and patterns that no longer serve you. One of the most beautiful things about replacing is that it empowers you. Fixing keeps you trapped in a mindset of deficiency. You think, I'm broken, so I must repair myself. Replacing shifts you into a mindset of agency. It says, I can choose to let this go and step into something stronger. This simple shift in perspective is profound. It moves you from shame to responsibility. And here, responsibility does not mean blame. It means ability. The ability to respond differently, the ability to create something new, and the ability to take control of your own growth. You might be wondering, how do I know what to replace? The answer begins with a simple observation. Notice the areas of your life where you are repeatedly trying to fix yourself. Look at the habits, thoughts, or patterns that keep coming back, despite your efforts. These are the parts of yourself that are ready to be replaced. Start small. Focus on one pattern at a time. You don't need to change everything at once. Replacement is not about perfection. It is about steady evolution, growth in small steps, and creating a life that supports the person you want to become. Replacing is not about becoming someone totally different. It is about becoming a clearer, stronger version of who you already are. You keep your roots, your story, and your history. You simply allow what no longer serves you to fall away, just like the tree shedding old leaves. Over time, you grow new habits, new ways of thinking, and a new sense of confidence that feels natural, supportive, and lasting. When you replace instead of fix, you stop chasing temporary relief and start building lasting growth. You move from deficiency to agency. You stop being a person who is always behind, always chasing improvement, and start being a person who actively designs the life they want. One word captures the first step in replacing yourself: awareness. Start noticing the thoughts that drain your energy. Pay attention to the habits that leave you feeling empty or stuck. Listen to the beliefs that quietly make you feel smaller or shrink your sense of what is possible. These are the areas in your life that are ready for replacement, not fixing. Maybe it's the belief that you are only worthy when you are productive. Maybe it's the habit of constantly comparing yourself to others until you feel like you don't measure up. Maybe it's saying yes to everything until you have no time left for yourself. Each of these patterns isn't something you need to forcefully fix. They are invitations to replace. They are opportunities to create something stronger and more supportive in your life. Replacement doesn't happen all at once. It happens piece by piece, one belief at a time, one pattern at a time. And here's an important truth. Replacing yourself is an act of self-respect. It is not punishment. It is not about blaming yourself for the past. It is about recognizing that you have outgrown certain ways of thinking and behaving. It is about giving yourself permission to grow. Think of it like outgrowing old clothes. Clothes that no longer fit don't need mending. They need replacing. We outgrow jobs, neighborhoods, even relationships. And just as we replace those things, we also replace parts of ourselves that no longer serve our growth. We don't force old shoes to fit our feet. We put on new shoes that can carry us further. Replacing works the same way. You leave behind what holds you back and choose what helps you move forward. Take a moment and ask yourself, if you look at your life right now, what is one belief, one habit, or one pattern that you are ready to replace? Not fix temporarily, not patch up, but replace completely? What can you put in its place that actually supports the person you are becoming? Hold that thought in your mind, because it is the seed for transformation. When we start replacing ourselves instead of fixing, our identity begins to shift. It is easy to think about replacement only in terms of actions. Replace procrastination with productivity. Replace self-criticism with self-compassion. Replace distraction with focus. And while actions are important, replacement runs deeper. It changes the story you tell yourself about who you are. It changes how you see yourself in the world. Identity shift is the true power of replacement. When you replace old patterns with new ones, you stop identifying with what no longer serves you. You stop seeing yourself as lazy, unproductive, or incapable. You start seeing yourself as someone who is growing, learning, and capable of handling life in new ways. You move from living under the weight of your flaws to stepping into the freedom of your potential. This is why replacing is so powerful. Fixing only gives temporary relief. Replacing creates lasting transformation. It changes how you feel, how you act, and most importantly, how you see yourself. Step by step, pattern by pattern, thought by thought, replacing allows you to build a new version of yourself that is stronger, more resilient, and ready for the life you truly want to live. Yes, taking small steps and changing behaviors is important. But here's the deeper truth. Lasting change doesn't happen only at the level of what you do. It happens at the level of identity. If you only change your actions but never change what you believe about yourself, old patterns will always find a way back. Think about it. If someone constantly says, "I need to stop being lazy," what are they really saying? Inside that sentence is a hidden message. Laziness is who I am, and my only hope is to control it. Even as they try to change, they are reinforcing the identity of laziness. That is why so many people get trapped in the same resolutions, the same promises, and the same frustrations year after year. Now, imagine what happens when the identity itself changes. Instead of saying, "I need to stop being lazy," you say, "I am someone who values consistency." Instantly, everything feels different. You are no longer battling yourself. You are stepping into a new role, a new way of being. The focus moves from resisting an old identity to embodying a new one. That is the true power of an identity shift. Psychologists explain this clearly. Our behaviors naturally follow the story we tell ourselves about who we are. If your story says, "I'm a person who never sticks with anything," then even when you try new habits, you will unconsciously sabotage them because they don't fit the story. But if your story says, "I am the kind of person who follows through," then consistency starts to feel natural, almost inevitable. The story you choose becomes a compass that guides your actions, decisions, and even your thoughts. This is why replacing yourself is far more powerful than fixing yourself. Fixing keeps you tied to the old story, the story where you are always repairing what is broken. Replacing invites you to write a completely new story. It's not just about thinking differently. It's about creating a new identity. Replacing yourself is about consciously choosing who you want to be and gradually living in alignment with that identity. You stop patching the old version of yourself and start building the version that reflects your true potential. When you replace, you step out of the cycle of frustration and step into a life where your actions, habits, and beliefs all work together. For example, instead of constantly fighting laziness, you start to see yourself as consistent and capable. Instead of struggling to focus, you see yourself as someone who can concentrate and finish what you start. Every small choice then reinforces this new identity, and over time, the old patterns fade naturally. Replacing yourself is a gentle, empowering approach. It is not about forcing change or punishing yourself for past mistakes. It is about evolving. It is about creating a story where you are the kind of person who naturally lives the life you want. And when your identity shifts, your behavior, your confidence, and even your self-belief shift automatically. The story you tell yourself becomes your guide, and suddenly, lasting change feels possible. Not because you worked harder, but because you became a new kind of person. Let's look at a simple example of how identity changes everything. Imagine two people trying to quit smoking. One says, "I'm trying to quit." The other says, "I don't smoke." The first statement keeps the old identity alive, a smoker who is struggling to stop. The second statement shows a completely new identity. Which person is more likely to succeed? Not the one who keeps trying to fix the old self, but the one who replaces the old identity with a new one. That's the power of replacing rather than fixing. Now, identity shifts don't happen instantly. They aren't magic. They are built through repeated choices, through small daily actions that confirm who you want to become. You don't wake up one morning suddenly disciplined, confident, or fluent in English. But each time you choose consistency over avoidance, each time you speak kindly to yourself instead of criticizing yourself, each time you act in line with your new identity, you strengthen it. Step by step, it becomes natural. Over time, it becomes who you are. Think about the story you've been carrying about yourself. Maybe you've said, "I'm shy," or "I'm bad at languages," or "I'm not confident." These statements might feel true because you've believed them for so long. But most of the time, they're just old identities that you've rehearsed until they felt like home. What if, instead of trying to fix shyness, you replace that identity with, "I'm someone who builds confidence every day"? What if you replaced, "I'm bad at languages" with, "I'm someone who learns steadily, improving step by step"? Can you feel how different the energy is? It is no longer about fixing damage or flaws. It is about living possibility, being the person you want to become. Identity is powerful because it doesn't just shape your behavior, it shapes your perception of the world. If your identity is, "I'm a worrier," you will constantly look for problems, scan for mistakes, and expect things to go wrong. But if your identity is, "I'm resilient," you will notice opportunities to practice resilience even in difficult situations. Identity directs your attention, influences your choices, and guides your actions without you even thinking about it consciously. The amazing thing about replacing is that it works quietly but profoundly. It is not about pushing yourself to be better for a few moments or trying harder today. It is about slowly rewriting the story you live in every day. Your old identity may have said, "I give up easily," but your new identity says, "I keep going, even when it's hard." Your old identity may have said, "I'm not good at speaking," but your new one says, "I speak more confidently every time I try." The story you tell yourself becomes the lens through which you see everything, and when that lens changes, your world changes too. Replacing yourself is not a quick trick. It is a steady, thoughtful, and gentle process of rewriting your story. You stop identifying with the person who procrastinates, fears failure, or doubts themselves. You start identifying with the person who acts, grows, and moves forward every day. Over time, that shift in identity becomes permanent. You don't just change behaviors, you become the person who naturally behaves that way. And that is why replacing yourself is so much more powerful than constantly trying to fix yourself. Here's the beautiful thing. Identity is not fixed. It's not something written in stone. It's a story you can rewrite, a character you can grow into, a role you can try on until it feels real. You are not trapped by who you've been. You can choose to evolve and step into a new version of yourself. Take a quiet moment and reflect. Ask yourself, what identity have I been holding on to that no longer serves me? And then ask, what identity would I like to take its place? Don't rush for the perfect answer. Sometimes just asking the question begins to open a new path forward. The goal isn't to judge your old identity or feel bad about it. It's simply to notice that you have the freedom to grow beyond it. Think about your life like a story. The story you tell yourself shapes everything, how you feel, how you act, and even what you notice in the world. If you keep trying to fix yourself, you're stuck repeating old chapters, saying the same lines, living the same patterns. But when you replace yourself, you write a new chapter. A chapter with a new voice, a new narrative, and a new version of you. This is what real transformation is. Not endlessly repairing old habits or flaws, but having the courage to replace them with something better. Let's make this idea practical. Understanding identity shift is one thing. Living it every day is another. The key is to notice familiar situations in your life and reframe them through the lens of the identity you want to grow into. When you see it in action, it stops feeling abstract. It starts feeling real and possible. For example, consider the workplace. Many people carry the silent weight of perfectionism. They sit at their desks thinking, "I must be perfect," or "I'm not good enough." That story is heavy. Every small mistake feels like a crisis. Every missed detail feels like proof of failure. Now, imagine replacing that identity. Instead of being someone who must be perfect, you begin to see yourself as someone who learns, grows, and adapts. Mistakes become opportunities to practice, not threats to your worth. The internal dialogue changes and gradually your thinking patterns shift. You are no longer trapped by perfectionism. You are someone capable of doing their best while remaining calm, confident, and present. Replacing yourself doesn't just change how you act in the world, it changes how you speak to yourself in private moments, the thoughts you carry, and the energy you bring to life. It's not about forcing change or trying harder. It's about gently guiding yourself into a new story. Each choice, each thought, and each action that aligns with the identity you want strengthens it. Step by step, the old version of you naturally fades, and the new one grows stronger. This is the essence of identity shift. It's not a quick fix or a temporary patch. It's a process of replacing old patterns, old beliefs, and old self-stories with ones that empower you to grow, thrive, and live more freely. And the more you practice, the more it becomes automatic. You don't just act differently, you become different. And that is the true power of replacing yourself. Every one of us has a voice inside our heads. It talks to us all the time, quietly commenting on everything we do. Sometimes it encourages us, but often it criticizes. Most people don't realize how powerful this inner voice is. It doesn't just affect your mood, it shapes your identity. If your mind constantly whispers, "I'm not ready," or "I always mess up," then over time, you start to live inside that story. You act as if it's true. It becomes your reality. But if that same voice begins to say, "I'm learning," or "I'm getting stronger with every step," your world changes. The outer situation might stay the same, but your experience of it shifts. Your thoughts are like a script your mind follows. If you never edit the script, you keep performing the same story over and over, hoping for a different ending. So, the first step in replacing yourself is not forcing fake positivity or pretending everything is fine. It's about noticing the words you use with yourself when no one else is listening. Your internal dialogue is like the engine driving your life. If it runs on criticism, you stay stuck. But if it runs on self-compassion and growth, you move forward. Here's a simple truth. You cannot grow beyond the language you use to describe yourself. If your thoughts are always about fixing, "I should be better," "I must stop doing that," "I can't believe I messed up again," then your energy is trapped in shame, frustration, and self-criticism. You focus on what's wrong instead of what's possible. But when you switch to replacement language, your mind starts to guide you differently. "I'm learning, I'm building new habits, I'm discovering what works for me." The shift is subtle, but it moves you from punishment to possibility. Let's make it practical. Imagine you're learning English and you make a mistake in a conversation. The old fixing voice says, "I sound stupid." That shuts down your confidence. But the replacing voice says, "That's one more mistake I'll never make again." That opens the door to improvement. One sentence closes you off. The other pushes you forward. Or think about a stressful day when nothing seems to go right. The fixing voice says, "I can't handle this." It makes you feel small and powerless. The replacing voice says, "I can handle what I can, and I'll learn from what I can't control." It doesn't pretend the problem isn't there. Instead, it changes your perspective, giving you clarity and strength. The key idea is that replacement changes your inner story. Instead of endlessly patching flaws, you start to rewrite how you see yourself. You are no longer a person trapped in old mistakes or fears. You are a person who grows, learns, and moves forward. Over time, this internal dialogue shapes your actions, your confidence, and even how others see you. Every time you speak kindly to yourself, every time you choose growth over blame, every time you replace criticism with curiosity, you are installing a new operating system for your mind. One that supports the person you want to become. You stop being your own harsh critic. You become your own coach. And that is the quiet but powerful first step in replacing yourself, noticing your mental language and gently shifting it from fixing to growth. Every day, from the moment you wake up until you fall asleep, there's one thing you can always count on: the voice inside your head. It talks constantly. Sometimes it cheers you on, saying things like, "You can do this," or "That went well." Other times it criticizes, pointing out mistakes or reminding you of your fears. Most people don't realize how much this inner voice shapes their lives. It's not just a running commentary. It creates the story you live in. The way you interpret experiences comes from that voice. Two people can face the same situation and react completely differently because of the story their mind tells them. One voice might say, "I can't handle this. I'm failing," and the person feels overwhelmed. Another voice might say, "I'm practicing how to stay calm under pressure," and the person grows stronger. The situation hasn't changed. Only the interpretation has. That small shift is where real power lives. You may not control every event in your life, but you do control the story your mind chooses to tell about what's happening. Every thought you repeat strengthens the pathway in your brain that makes that thought feel true. In other words, your brain learns from your thinking. If you constantly think, "I'm failing," your brain trains itself to see failure everywhere. But if you replace that thought with, "I'm learning from this," your brain begins to build a story of growth instead of defeat. This is why awareness matters so much. The moment you notice a thought that drains your energy, you have the chance to replace it with one that builds you up. Start small. Instead of thinking, "I'm overwhelmed," try, "I'm organizing one thing at a time." Instead of, "I failed," think, "I discovered what doesn't work, and now I can improve." Instead of, "I'm behind," try, "I'm moving at my own pace." Each small shift rewires your mental patterns over time. Slowly, your thoughts become allies instead of enemies. Your inner dialogue starts to sound like someone who believes in you, because that's exactly the person you're becoming. Pay attention as you move through your day. Ask yourself, is this the voice of my old identity that I've been trying to fix, or is this the voice of my new identity that I'm choosing to replace it with? Transformation doesn't start with a sudden breakthrough. It starts with a single sentence inside your mind. I am no longer broken. I am becoming. Think about it. That inner dialogue is always present. It's like a narrator following you everywhere, describing your life. You might not notice it at first, but it guides your feelings, your choices, and even how others see you. When it's critical, it keeps you stuck in shame and self-doubt. When it's supportive, it encourages growth, confidence, and resilience. Replacing old thoughts with new ones isn't about pretending life is perfect. It's about creating a foundation for real change. It's about moving from punishment to possibility, from fear to curiosity, from limitation to growth. Each time you speak to yourself with kindness, each time you replace a thought that drags you down with one that lifts you up, you are training your brain, your habits, and your identity. You are slowly becoming the person you want to be. This is the power of the inner voice. It may feel small, almost invisible, but it is the engine of your growth. By paying attention, noticing, and gently shifting your internal dialogue, you replace old patterns, build resilience, and transform your life from the inside out. One sentence at a time, one thought at a time, your story changes. You stop being trapped in old mistakes and fears. You start moving forward as a stronger, wiser, more capable version of yourself. Every day, we all have a voice inside our heads. Most of the time, we don't even notice it. It just runs in the background, like a radio quietly playing. Sometimes it encourages us, but more often it criticizes, doubts, or reminds us of mistakes we've made. That little voice might seem harmless, but it's actually very powerful. It shapes how you feel, how you act, and even who you think you are. Think about that for a moment. The words you silently say to yourself can either trap you in the same old habits or help you grow into someone new. Let's make it simple with an example. Imagine you had a presentation recently, and your mind went blank halfway through. Or maybe you promised yourself you'd wake up early and exercise, but after a few days, you hit snooze and gave up. What did your inner voice say at that moment? Did it say, "I failed again"? Or did it say, "Okay, I'm learning how to be consistent"? That small difference in words might seem minor, but it changes everything. One thought labels you as a failure, keeping you stuck in shame. The other labels you as a learner, reminding you that mistakes are part of the process. And as we've discussed before, your identity comes from your inner story. If you see yourself as a failure, you'll act like one. If you see yourself as someone who is learning, you'll keep trying. That's how real growth happens. Most of the time, the world focuses on what we say to others, debates, meetings, or discussions with friends and coworkers. But the most important conversation is the one happening inside your own head. Psychologists call this self-talk. These are the automatic thoughts that appear without effort. They might say, "I'm not good enough, I'll never change," or "I can't handle this." The problem is that when we let these thoughts run unchecked, they become habits. They form patterns that quietly shape our actions. Over time, these thoughts start controlling your life. If your mind constantly says, "I'm bad at this," or "I always mess up," you start to believe it. And once you believe it, your behavior will follow. You might stop trying new things, avoid challenges, or feel stuck in the same cycle of mistakes. The key to change is noticing this voice and understanding its impact. Awareness is the first step. Once you see these automatic thoughts, you can start replacing them instead of trying to ignore or fight them. For example, instead of thinking, "I failed again," you can say, "I learned something valuable and can improve next time." Instead of, "I can't handle this," try, "I'm figuring out how to handle it step by step." These small changes in language gradually rewire your brain. Replacing your inner dialogue doesn't mean pretending life is perfect or lying to yourself. It's about being honest while guiding your mind toward growth. Each time you choose a thought that supports your learning, your confidence, and your resilience, you are slowly replacing old patterns that kept you stuck. Over time, your inner voice becomes your ally instead of your enemy. You stop seeing yourself as broken or failing, and start seeing yourself as someone who is growing, learning, and becoming stronger every day. Your internal dialogue is like the script your brain reads from. If you don't edit it, you keep performing the same story over and over. But once you start changing the script, replacing old, negative thoughts with new, empowering ones, you open the door to real transformation. One thought at a time, one sentence at a time, you create the person you want to be. The moment you begin to speak to yourself with kindness, patience, and curiosity, your mind starts shaping a new reality.